Most UK visa applications for visitors don't get rejected because of missing documents. They get rejected because your travel plan does not make financial sense. Now, see on the screen where you see a detailed breakdown for 3 applicants traveling on a 10-day trip in the month of May 2026, covering flights, accommodation, food, sightseeing, medical insurance, and any contingency. Now, let me get down to the first element, which is how long the trip is. The trip is 10-day long. This is for 3 applicants. And as you saw on the screen, it is costing you £6,000. Now, £6,000 is just not a number that's plucked from the sky. It is a realistic, well-planned estimate. Let us consider what is the biggest cost for a UK trip. That is your flight cost from the home country to the UK destination where you want to be. In this scenario, I've assumed that you're traveling from New Delhi to London Heathrow. Now, this is a return flight and you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to planning. Nobody expects you or the government mandates you that you have to travel by business class or premium economy. You can decide whichever airline and whether you want to have a direct flight or indirect flight. Now, if you're traveling someone who is on a limited budget, then I recommend that you take one airlines for a total of 3 applicants. Now, this is a indirect flight. Now, compare that to a direct flight, which exponentially increases your cost to 430,000 to 450,000 rupees INR if you were to take a direct flight from, say, Virgin Atlantic, as you can see on the screen, or Air India. Now, if you are happy to travel direct and you have the funds for it and you don't have any issue of limitation of income, then by all means select a direct flight. Now, I'm not going to tell you what you should select, but try to select something realistic. If you were to select a price of a flight that is showing you £350, which has a 26-hour layover or a break, then that is likely to look at appear unrealistic to the visa case officer. And mind you, for every number that you put in, you must make sure that you provide a snapshot, not a confirmed booking, because unless and until you've been granted visa, you must not make a confirmed booking. Say Google Flights or, for example, booking.com, and that should be sufficient to show that this is the date you're leaving, this is the date you're arriving, and the cost of that for the total number of people. Now, the second option is what is your next major cost, especially when you've never been to the UK, that is accommodation cost. Now, there are 2 options. First, on the screen, I'll show you a chain of hotels called Premier Inn. They're fantastic hotels. I'm not endorsing them, but I've stayed there for hundreds of times, and it's a 3-star kind of brand, really almost like self-service. You check in, check out, really good spacious bedrooms, very comfortable mattress, and I can tell you that I've really enjoyed my stay with them. Now, these hotels come between the range of £130 per night to £190 per night. Now, before at 1 o'clock, you can still cancel the booking, but you slightly pay a £100 or £200 premium in total for that booking. And that means that if you assume that you're going to get the visa, you've opted for the flexible booking, but in case the plan change, you can cancel the booking before 1 p.m. on the day of arrival and you will get a full refund. The second option is that you live in an apart hotel like Airbnb, but Airbnbs, the owners, they don't share addresses until you made the payment. So it is a risky option, and there are a lot of frauds happening on Airbnb where the properties are being advertised, but when the person reaches, there is nobody, right? So my suggestion is there is a hotel called Aparthotels by Adagio Group in Stratford, where the Premier Inn is located, where you can rent out the entire apartment in a hotel. You get a 1-bedroom. So if you've got 3 people, you get 2 bedrooms. Again, I've stayed there, fantastic hotel. I'm not being paid by them, I'm not endorsing, but I can vouch for them in that sense that it is a fantastic place. And the reason why I'm vouching for them is they give you a kitchen in that apartment. So in a traditional hotel like Premier Inn, you don't get a kitchen, you have to go and eat out, and every day you will spend more money. So I'm going to cover that. But if you're living in an apartment, which is in a hotel, it is centrally connected to the public transport. You get your own kitchen, and the groceries that you buy from Tesco's or M&S or Asda is going to be significantly cheaper in terms of daily cost of eating out compared to if you were to stay in a hotel. So, but these apart hotels can cost you between £230 to £270 per night. But if you're living with 3 people, like husband and wife and a teenager son up to the age of 15, I think it's a win-win situation, because then you can have more choices. And if you like to cook for yourself and something to your taste, then you can look at the apart hotel that is in Stratford. Look, take a snapshot, and then you can provide that snapshot in the accommodation cost. Again, it's completely up to you. So if you're on a budget, select Premier Inn. If you can afford a slightly higher, then select the apart hotel. Now the third cost is, how do you plan the local traveling cost or local daily allowances? Now there is no official guidance for that. Usually people plan anywhere from £90 as the lowest per day to 180 to 200 pounds per day. But given the cost of living has drastically increased in London in the last 2 years, I want to make sure that you understand the components of daily allowances. Now, what you can do is, you need to travel if you want to do sightseeing, sorry. So what you can do is, you can access the public transport, which is the underground network referred as a tube. Tubes have different names like District Line, Central Line, Elizabeth Lane, Hammersmith and City Lane, different kinds of lane, and you can find the map on the TfL, and it looks like this, which I'm showing you, the London map. And then you can also travel by the bus. So how do you anticipate the cost of that? So the Transport for London has published the fares up to 2027, that if you do pay as you go, how much money you can expect to pay for a week or for a day. So the good thing is, it will cost you £52.50 if you were to go between zone 1 to 3. And you can travel as much as you want. So if the 7 days cost £52.50, the rough cost is £7.50 per day. You multiply by 10 days, you get the cost per person for 10 days. Touchy topic, because everybody have their own taste. They like to eat out. But if you're going on a 10-day trip and you coming from Asia, where you like your own cuisine and your own cultural food, like Indian food or Pakistani food, London is the place to be, right? But it comes at a cost. Companies like Uber Eats, Deliveroo, justeat.co.uk, they are all delivering the food non-stop. You can order whenever you want. But if you see the snapshot of one of the portals that I'm showing you, the average cost for 3 people, if they're eating non-veg, right, per meal, right, per time for 3 people, it's going to be anywhere between, say, £60 to £75 per meal, right? If that means 3 people can eat as much as they want with beverages and all of that. Now times it by 3, because you're going to eat at least 3 times. So you will be looking at least 180 to 220 pounds per day. Now, if you got a 10-day trip, you are spending anywhere from 1,800 pounds to 2,200 pounds in eating. Now, so my recommendation is, if you take an apart hotel, which is slightly on the higher side of the cost per night, but groceries would cost you, for example, if you're for 10 days, around 400 pounds in total, right? And you can eat as much as you want to. You can get meat, milk, chicken, you name it, and you can cook for yourself. And that, it makes a huge difference in terms of savings, because then you know what you're eating, you plan it according to how you want to make it, and that ends up saving a lot of money. So that is something you need to bear in mind. And food, you don't need to show the estimate that, but you can just say you will prepare the food inside, because you're living in an apart hotel, for example, and you planned 40 pounds per day for 10 times, for 10 nights, it's 400 pounds, and you will buy the meals from Tesco's or Asda, whatever it is, right? You don't need to show that the meat costs this much, bread costs this much. You don't need to do that. Just put a realistic number, but just don't put 100 pounds for 10 days. That is completely unrealistic. And then what comes is a very important part is, God forbid, if you have a medical emergency. So usually emergencies are covered by the NHS, and unless you require a treatment, right? So always carry a medical insurance. There is a company called Tata AIG. I'm not endorsing them, but they cover you up to $750,000. The snapshot is on the screen also. But there is a lot of disclaimers also, that what is included, what is not included. It would cost you around 43 to 45 pounds per person for a 10-day trip for the UK. Take that, it is going to help you should there be any emergency, because this way you can also plug a number in your travel itinerary showing the visa officer that if there is a medical emergency, I'm covered and I will not be dependent on the UK public funds, because this is one of the reasons where the UK government is quite. I can show you on the screen how they look like, and they cost roughly around 39 pounds for a day. So you can get on the bus, then get out, and it's a full day trip and you really enjoy, so that cost is fixed. You show the source as to how, so if you're 3 people, 39 pounds times 3, what is the cost of that? Then if you are doing a river cruise, or if you're going on London Eye, which is like a giant wheel, look it on the screen, then there is a price of around 55 pounds per person to 60 pounds per person. Then you could do it times 3, then you also plug that number and show where you got the information from. One of the best things that the visa officers like is when you provide any number, you provide a source of that. And if you provide the estimates that I got this number from here, I got this number from here, and they can see the snapshot of the dates also, like the flights, like the accommodation, sightseeing, or whatever it is, then they can see, this person is quite detail oriented. He or she has done the proper research, and they have effectively planned for everything. Now comes the part of contingency. So if the total cost is around, say, 5,300 pounds, keeping another 600 pounds or 700 pounds as a contingency for shopping or anything is a good prudent approach. It's not required, but don't be like, hand to mouth. Don't be like very exact. Say my budget is this much and I've taken the estimates, and you should write that estimates are based on the fact that I'll be traveling between these dates, right? So make sure the dates are really important at the time of period you're going, and the source that is mentioned. They will compare this trip cost with your income. Now the final tip is that is not related to this travel itinerary, but you need to make sure that the total trip cost, for example, 6,000 pounds, if that is the cost, where husband is the only person paying for the trip and wife is not working, the kid is not working, and the husband is the sole earner, then you would be expected to show income against it that you can afford it. Now the visa officers is not only looking at that, can you afford 6,000 pounds? They want to make sure that when you return back from the UK to your home country, you got enough money to sustain. So they look for your economic consistency. Do you have a stable income? What are your existing legal obligations? Or if you spend 6,000 pounds and you're left with just 1,000 pounds on return, then that is likely to impact your visa decision. And they will say, we do not believe that under the rule V4.2E that you can meet the part of the expenses and you're economically stable, right? We don't believe that. So in that case, if there is a 10-day trip, I would shorten it to 7 days, because based on the 7 days, the flight price would also go down, the accommodation price would also go down, and the cost of daily allowance, like which is food, the local travel, would also go down. And then you can show that, okay, I have 10,000 pounds in my account, I'm going to be spending around 4,500. So that means I still have significant amount of money is sitting in my bank account. And that's how you plan your itinerary. So if you want the copy of this travel itinerary, how to present it, drop me in the comments down below. Please help me provide the travel itinerary. I will provide a Canva link in which you can see how to present the information. And you don't have to make fancy graphics, but just the structured category of flights, stay, daily food, local travel, sightseeing, contingency, medical insurance, that's it, and then visa fees all together totaled up. And make sure whatever information you've entered in the visa application form, the total money available for the trip, it is identical to this one. You should not have a difference between what you've said. And it is always advisable to show the trip cost both in pound sterling and local currency, because local currency, they check your bank account and your income, and the pound sterling, they see whether the prices that have been shown as per the UK currency are consistent and congruent to the trip expenses or not. I hope this is all you have got a good idea about how to present your information, and I hope you are liking my channel, and I cannot thank you enough for incredible support that I've been getting, where you all have been asking me questions and liking my videos and sharing success stories, because it means the world to me. And if you believe I've added some value, and if you would like to subscribe to my channel, please do so.